Hi guys. People want to see what I do sometimes out in the field, so I brought you to a gate. Now, this gate was put in by somebody who actually didn't know what they were doing, because the same thing happens time after time. They put the hinges on backwards. Sorry about the road noise, busy road today. That one is done correctly. You can adjust it. I mean, these are good hinges. They just got this one upside down. There's a grease cert here, and right inside that grease cert is a ball bearing, and then there's a post that comes from here down into it that ball bearing is supposed to rest on. When you put them in like this, water gets in here and goes down inside and rushes the dang thing shut. The weight is not suspended on the ball bearing anymore, so it's just not a good way to do it. And you would think that people learn by now, but I guess not. At least this one you can adjust. But this really needs to be taken off, turned over. Now this gate looks like it's a standard factory gate somebody's making. They make a little circle there so you can weld in your letter or whatever you want to put there. And as far as gates go, this is a pretty good one. To help you understand, if you see across the road over there, there's a regular farm gate. And see how it's all cattywampus? That's because there is absolutely no structural support in that gate. When you buy it and you hang it up there, it'll sag 3 or 4 inches the very first time you put it on the hinges. The makeup of that gate is piss poor. There is no structure to keep it from sagging. Now, if you buy one of those gates, first thing you do is you put a steel cable from the top hinge down to about 3/4 of the way out on the bottom rail and put a turnbuckle on it, and that'll keep that from happening. What's bad about that being unsupported is all those welds will break after a while. Then they start rusting, and then there's just nothing in there to keep it going, and then you throw it in the trash. The operator sitting over there is hanging off of it, much the same way this operator's hanging off of it, and much the same way as almost every Apollo nice or niece operator I come to look at is. That one over there isn't working, and this one isn't working either because they've had to disconnect it. More about that in a minute. Like I was saying, this gate here is a better gate than about 99% I see. See down here, it's welded all the way around. What that does is it keeps the moisture from going inside this steel tubing and leaking out from rust and getting rust stains over everywhere. It takes a lot more time to do all those welds, but it is more than worth it. Your gate will last a lot longer and be prettier. But we're going to change this to a security type gate and put on a new camera and access control keyboard. And the man wants to mount it right there, so I'll show you how we're going to do that later. Back to this thing. You might notice that there's a big ass battery sitting in here. And that big ass battery has got a charger on it charging this to keep it going. It's electric powered. Well, they put a big lead acid battery in here that sits there and charges and lets corrosive gas out the vents all the time in with the electronics. Because of that, they have to put vents in, and they put a screen on it, but there's no gasket around the dadgum door, So dirt, bugs, critters, ants, everything in their mother-in-law moves in, and you got problems. This is one of the main reasons I don't like this. This motherboard's updated. You can do a lot of things with it. You can set the controls and limits on that board, and it'll go to sleep when you're out in a solar situation, not use any power hardly. But I've opened up so many of these boxes and found snakes and everything else living in it. It's just not a good environment for electronics. Liftmaster seals all their boxes. You'll never find this in a Liftmaster box unless somebody didn't close it. This is the standard mounting arrangement for these. They come with this arm that's pre-cut at an angle. You weld it on and then weld on your post over there. The only way to release it is a pin right here, and this is what they put in most of them, and you got to put a lock on the bottom of it, or half of them don't even do that. Just not a very good. You might notice there's a grounding rod right there that I've been pounding on for about 20 minutes. Liftmaster requires all their units to be grounded, so I always put a ground rod in. Okay, I've bitched enough. That's what you don't buy. Now I'm going to show you what I suggest you put in here. This is my trailer that I use for working on gates. I've got Miller Bobcat in there that I can stick weld with if I need to. I also carry a little 140 Millermatic MIG, which I've had for years and years. Works very good for out here. I don't carry any gas. I use flux core wire, and it does pretty good. And I got all kinds of parts, wires, cables, shovels, tools, drinks, porta potty, microwave. I get out here and I'm sitting for, you know, all day long, and so kind of got to be self-sufficient by the time I get everything set up and tore down. This is the operator that we're going to put on here. It's a Liftmaster LA500. They make a 400 version that is a I call residential. Let me get this thing out and I'll show you what comes with it. Now this is the Liftmaster control box, and that's where electricity comes into it, and that's where the hole is left open for the gate cord. That's a little speaker right there. Got a reset button, and this is where the antenna goes. Notice you put the antenna on the outside of the damn box, not inside buried in the thing. With that Liftmaster, you need to ground it also, that radio, because it increases the range of your clickers. Well, these boxes have 4 screws that are down in there. I forgot, I gotta get the right screwdriver. Now that is a pretty animal. Kind of majestic, sitting there looking at me. There's his buddy over there kind of laying down. He doesn't care about me. A whole herd of them over there. Like all females over there. Big old buck right there. He's stamping his ground, stamping his leg on me. If you notice, there's a pretty high fence around here. And I go to a lot of these places nowadays. This is a big thing in Texas. Figured out that there's more money in raising these animals than there is cows. Pretty. Pretty. I gotta get to work. Back to this little dude. To get this one open, you got 4 screws that you undo, and you can feel them when they exit the thread, and there's a little rubber O-ring on them that keeps it from falling out. Mud daubers and other critters like to go in these holes, and sometimes you have to dig them out. This also keeps people from just walking up to them and opening them, and it seals them against the rain real well. Feel it now. And that's the inside. Now there's always a sealed wiring diagram in here. This one's electric version, so you can hook up to electricity. They also make solar versions that don't have this. This one has an expansion board where you can put in Liftmaster loop controllers, but today we hardly ever put those in because they have different kind of loops. You can also put a second set of photo eyes, and this one here will give you a relay that tells you when that gate's open or not. So instead of putting on a magnetic switch on the gate, I'll use this relay to tell it when it's open and closed. There's some accessory stuff. These are very good. I like these. Got a spare fuse in the cover here. And this one, let me get both hands. You can slide off the hinges so that these little post hinges, you slide that off and you can work in it easy. But also notice it's got a system here for sealing, and there's a rubber seal in there. So this one keeps the critters, dust, electricity where it's supposed to be, in the water. Another thing is you have electricity coming in here, and it goes through that port in back behind this plate. So this plate effectively keeps all the high voltage away from the low voltage such. Good feature. I'll put that in there where it doesn't get all scratched up. And this is what I was warning you. They've changed the dadgum design. They took the little rubber rings off of it during COVID. I forgot about that. So don't lose your little stainless screws. Even they have a little rubber washer on the back to... You know what? That washer should be on the other side after they put that on. Well, I guess they're using it to seal it too. There used to be one on the other side. So, find something to hold them. Keep them up there for a while. Second part of this system is the eyes. Now, every gate manufacturer includes a set of these eyes, not this brand, but a similar photo setup. This is a very nice one. The one that comes with that niece is a very little one. It's just more like a toy, an afterthought. They didn't even put it on here. This one comes with a reflector, so you only have to have wires on one side, wires on one side. This goes on the other side. It's not as good, but that's what we got. When they came out with these in 2016, they gave us hell, because as you can kind of notice, sometimes we have rain and humidity and fog. These things would fog up. This one has to shoot from this side to the reflector and then reflect back to this to work. Well, when it gets moisture on here, and this was the main one, it just doesn't work well. It won't let your gate close. So we were getting calls everywhere. I went and talked to the guys at Liftmaster at one of the fence techs and told them what I did for my telescopes. I put a heater wire like you use in a refrigerator and 9 volts through that around all the glass surfaces on my telescope. It kept them just warm enough to keep the moisture off. And so the next year, that's what they did to these. We're going to be putting these on. These are the mounting attachment points for this arm. This one goes on the post, this one goes out on the gate. And they got some extra, if you're going to use 2 gates off this one control, there's another connector for it. It goes here. This one's where you hook up the wires from this. You know, and Liftmaster does things pretty dang good. Look, hardly anybody does that. They're too long, so you need to trim them off a little bit before you put them in that connector, or they hang down too far. But that's a good start. Now on to the arm I like. This is a LA500. It's a commercial service arm. It's not like that linear actuator over there, which is just a big screw in a tube. I've even had the screw nuts break off inside, and last I checked, that was about an $800 replacement arm. And for about the same money, you can get one of these. Now this Liftmaster is the one I use. It's an LA500. Attaches to this bracket. You got 5 positions you can move it into if you need to. This bracket comes out here and goes onto this, which you weld on, and it runs all the way down there. It's 10 times quieter, designed for heavy-duty service. And one of the neat features is this. Remember I said you had to put a lock on that pin, and people don't do it, and this one, to get open, you just turn this handle here. And that releases the inside mechanism that attaches to the gate and lets you swing it. Then you swing it back in position and lock it there. Much easier. You don't have to be trying to unbolt things. Your wife won't be cursing you for buying the crappy gate. Comes with an antenna and manual, and if you notice, it says do not straighten. I find these things straightened out all the time. They're made like that. Don't straighten them up. And if you have to, this one not so much. This one will be okay. Mainly because, and if you need to, in most gates, if they're behind big brick columns or blocked a lot, this one's kind of out in the open. It'll have good range for its clickers. But if you need more range, you can buy an accessory kit. This is Multicode, makes these linear, and they have a bracket, an antenna, and about 15 feet of cable, and you can mount these up on a post or column, get them up where the range really increases. And if you got the ground rod, it's even better. We're not going to need this today. This one's going to be mainly controlled by that box up there from his phone. Liftmasters don't need a charger, they're built in. They don't need this crappy battery either. Their batteries are also built in. And that commercial arm is a 24 volt, not a 12 volt. I took the buzzer off and left it in a bag. Shit. Best part in the whole box. Disconnected everything out of that box. Arms off. Liftmaster radio, their battery, I'll leave that there. They can use it for something. That charger is probably no good. This is a 1050 motherboard for that operator. Now, when these first came out, I saw a huge crate of them at the dealer full of returns, and I'm going to keep this one, but I won't sell it to anybody. And the only reason I'm keeping it is because a lot of times I go to people that are just really limited income. They don't have any money. Their gate doesn't work and they got one of these. I will give this to somebody that's in need of it. I don't know if it works. There won't be any warranty. I'm not going to get paid for it, but maybe it'll help some poor widow lady out. We'll see. Now I need to get out the grinder and cut that arm off. Let's see if that's enough. Here on the end of the arm. That's why I leave the arm on them. Oh, not yet. Have to go to another. There it goes. And there we are. Piece of crap hits the ground. Yay! Take a grinder and clean all that up, and I may have to cut that one off and put it back on so that my box fits. We'll just have to check it out. Well, got all that off. I just remeasured, and I can leave both of these arms the way they are. And I just talked to the client, and instead of putting the secondary camera that we were going to put on here, I'm just going to mount this post in the box right on this one. We'd cut it to where it fit down there, but now it'd be better here. That way I can aim the camera at the driveway and they can get a picture of the driveway there. Well, my GoPro battery ran out, so I switched over to the telephone. Got everything set up now to mount the post on top. Got it all ground off and tacked up. It's all level. Get that welded on. Cleaned up all that down there. Put a little ground over here, and what I'm using is my Millermatic 140. I like that for this kind of stuff. Set up with a flux core wire. Bobcat's giving the generator power to it. And if I could hold this and weld at the same time, I would. I don't know, maybe I can put it over here. Try that. Of that little miller is 90% of the stuff I weld on out in the field is thin. And stick welding it in windy conditions, it's just a pain in the butt. But with my miller, I can do acceptable, not the best in the world by a long shot, not like IC can do, but I make a double pass because this stuff's, you know, pretty thin stuff, and I get a nice joint there that goes up, you know, 1/4 inch up into the metal and weld it up. That'll hold till the cows come home, which cows do come through this gate, so they will be coming home. Well, now that I've got everything welded on for the top keypad and those arm brackets are okay for the control box, I've got to mount the operator arm to the column and the gate. And this is where I see a lot of people screw up. On this page in the installation manual from Liftmaster, there's all the information you need. You just gotta understand it and read the damn thing. Now, dimension A and dimension B are shown here. A is from the center line of the hinge to where you want to put it on the front bracket. And there's 5 positions there. So you get a little bit of wiggle room if you're off a little bit. Now, A and B, the ideal is something like 7 3/4. Well, there it is up at the top. 7 3/4 for A and 8 1/2 for B. But you can do different measurements, and here are some of the different measurements you could use, like 9 inches, 9 inches, 8 1/2, 9, a combination. And when you do a combination, you just can't be better. The sum of A and B can't be over 18 inches. So 45.7 bananas for all you people in Australia. Anyway, that's where people screw up a lot. I've seen them where I've had to come in and take everything off because they couldn't even get to close. Another dimension you got to watch for is in figure 3 here. The top of the bracket that mounts to the gate has to be 2 1/4 inches lower than the bracket that mounts over here. That's because this position here is where the gate goes, and if you notice, way up here is where the post hinge is. So you got to make that 2 1/4. And so on this gate, I got to do some figuring, and I've got to mount this piece here on this bar first, and then weld that one up 2 1/4 inches higher. And that's because I want it to be on that crossbar. Now I could weld another piece across, spanning 3 of those uprights and weld it to that, but I don't have to on this one. Sometimes you do, but not on this one. And I will be leaving that there. The reason is that is so solidly welded on there that if I try to get that off of there, I'm going to mess up the dadgum structural integrity of this rail. It's not hurting anything, so I'm going to leave it. Somebody else wants to take it off and screw up the gate, they can. So anyway, that's what I've got to install now. Those are some very simple instructions on how to do it. So let's get to it. Okay, I'm over at the gate. There is my hinge point. This is the post, and the first thing I need to do is determine if I've got to cut this off any. The way I'll do that is measure that post inset and see where it is. So the center of the post right there, that's roughly 2 1/4 inches. So if you look at your chart, the ideal position for 8 is to be 7 3/4. So if I were to put this one here onto the post like that, I'd end up with 2 1/4. I'd end up with 9 1/2 to the first hole. Ideally, I want it to be in the middle. So that's 10 inches. So if I were just to stick this on and weld it, stick it on like that, it would be 10 inches out, which is the maximum they want you to be is like 9 inches. So I'd have to cut at least 1 inch off, but it would be better if I cut 2 1/4 off. That would bring it down to 7 3/4. But the next part of this puzzle is how far over it will be from this point to this point. So what I do is I'll just take and put this like this. Now that's if I run it all the way to this edge. If I run it from that edge to over there, it looks like 6 1/2 to the center. Just going down, just rough eyeballing, 6 1/2. So that would be 6 1/2, and they would like me to be 8 inches, 8 1/2, 7 3/4, 7 1/2. So if I were to go 7 1/2 and 7 1/2, which I can easily vary this distance. This one's the hard one because I'm limited by how far the post. You know, I could weld something on there, but if I can keep it on here, I'll be fine. So let's see. If I were to take and move it over to 7 1/2 inches, that's where 7 1/2 inches would be. That'd be way out there. Well, that's not very good. So I'll show you a little trick that I'm going to do. This not only takes care of my measurement problem, or dimension problem, but it makes it stronger. I am going to take and offset this like that. Then, from that hole to here, I'm going to have right at 7 1/2 inches. So if I have 7 1/2 inches there, I can then cut a notch in this end and inset it and go around this corner, and then I would have weld here, and that isn't going anywhere. So that's what I'm going to do. So if I come over to right there to the center of that hole, let me go get something to make this easy on us. Okay, speed square and a Sharpie. Now I know we want this hole to be in the center of this hole here, so we're just going to mark that there. Now we need to figure out its depth. We're going to turn this over, put it on this side of the post, and then we want this center hole to be 7 1/2 inches off that grease circle. That's about right there. Grease circle's there. And there's where we want it. So we want this at that level right there. And so to make this correct, we need to cut this half and this half, and we need to cut that out. Oh no. No, 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 no. Wrong, 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 wrong. We need to cut this out. Now on my trailer, I carry one of the DeWalt metal cutting saws with the carbide teeth. That is the cat's meow for cutting metal out in the field. The only problem is it's only good for angle cuts or straight cuts. It really won't do what I need to in making this notch in this piece. So I carry a little vise with me. Can clamp it to place, put it on the ground, whatever, to hold this. And then I'm just going to have to use a cutoff blade to cut up through here and then cut that notch there. It'll take a while, but that's all I got. All right, there's cut out. I put a little bevel on top of it, get a little bit more thickness into the metal. On the weld, I got to figure out where we're going to put it over there, but that depends on where we put the one out there on the rail. So I've got to measure all that up. And I'm probably going to get a lot of grief about not having a guard on this grinder right there. I like guards. I just can't use them in these situations because it won't get down into where I need to cut. So I usually wear a helmet, gloves, some leathers, and boots. I hate boots. When I weld out here at home, I can stick my feet under the welding table. Out here, it sucks. But I know about guards. It's just sometimes you can use them and some. Okay, let me do a little bit more figuring and I'll bring you back. Okay, now ready to mount these onto the post. I've got my notch cut out. I'm using my center hole here, and this part goes on the gate. Now that area right there is going to be welded about a 1/4 inch below the top of this, maybe a 1/2 inch. That way I can get a really nice thick weld and build it up through there so it won't come off. Remember, this is real thin metal, and if I have a bigger bead on it instead of a little bead like that, I increase the amount of metal that's in the weld and make it to where it doesn't work fatigue in a little bitty spot. So anyway, I'm going to have this hole and this hole 35.5 inches apart from here to out there on the rail. But the second part is I need to have it 2.5 inches higher over here on this side than where I put it here. So I need to get this dimension to this post first. Now I put a level on this, and this gate's really nice and level. So I'm going to use just a little trick and come over here, transfer to here, and then once I mount this piece and weld it in, tack it in, I can then measure my 35.5 inches over. So what I do is I get grunty, and when you get old, you make old fart sounds. You barely be around Don anymore, his old fart sounds. And what I'm going to do is put this over there. You can't see that. I'm going to put it right at where I want it to be on the gate, which is about a 1/2 inch down. Then I'm going to level this over, watching that bubble. And then I'm going to mark it. Sorry, I couldn't show you that. Stuffing my teeth and everything else. Get the cap off. What I did was I marked it here and I marked it there. Now we're going to move that mark on around to this side, and then we'll measure up. We know this is the top of this piece that we're going to weld on. So now I've got to go up, what is it, 2 1/4 to the top of the other piece. Very simple now. I need 4 hands. Pardon my knee. So now, that's the top of that one, and I need to go up 2 1/4 to get to the other. I'll make it and be right back. That's the top. Go to 2 1/4. That's 2 1/4 up. So that's where the top of my other bracket needs to be. This is going to mount just like that. Welded on both sides. I'll be at the right distance. So let me get that all cleaned off and tacked on there, and we'll go from there. Now I got it set up to where it's at the top of my line right there. It needs to go up a little bit, but you want it to be level this way, and you dang sure want it to be level this way. If you don't have it level this way, which that's not, what happens is that pivot point, when it gets out here, this is kicked up, and you have to leave a lot of slop in it for it to be able to turn. So make sure it's level that way. Now this is a plumber's 12-inch level. It's got graduations for if you want to put in 1/8 inch per foot fall, 1/4 inch, 3 inch, 1/2 inch for all the different pipe sewer sizes, so you get your right fall. This is just a regular level bubble there, and that's what I want to be. Dadgummit. Perfect. There. Don't trust these 90-degree angle magnets, because it may be a 90-degree angle, but the post could be leaning. So always check this level dimension, or make sure it's level on that one. And that is okay. So I need to raise it up about 1/8 of an inch and get it tacked in place, maybe a 1/4 there. What I do is, because I have to grind all this and I sometimes lose my mark, I take my grinder and I just put a little mark on the mark that I made, so I've got a permanent mark of what that should be. And there's the first pass. We're going to put another one on top of it. Sorry for the noise in the generator, but I'm too tired to go turn it off. Got that all welded up. Now we need to mark out here and get our gate attachment point. And as you can see from there, it's got to be 35.5 inches from here to my center hole. I always put in a center hole, that way if you screw up, you got a little bit of adjustment. And so I'll measure over from there. I'm going to need both hands. I'll bring you back once I mark it off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it up there and mark it, and then I'll take and grind all this powder coat, I think that's what that is, off, so we can weld good. Don't weld onto this crap. It takes 2 seconds with a grinder to get rid of it. Get better weld, it'll last forever. Little trick I do. You know, I work by myself most of the time. So what I do is I hold all this in one hand at 35 inches, 35.5. Then I reach over here and I just move it until it's in the center of that hole over there. 35.5. That's where I got to mark it, right there. Now another little trick I use is I put my grounding clamp on this piece and then hold it up there. And I put a tack right there. That way I can now use a level and make sure it's level and adjust that. And I can also use it out here to make that level. See, that's off a lot. I might end up having to break that weld. But that way you want this to be level with that surface over there, so it doesn't bind as it goes up there. You got a little play, but try to make it this way and it'll last longer, be a lot neater. Well, I ended up having to break it off because it's just too much. And what I do is I take a little wrench and I can bend it over there and get it level that way. Pretty easy. Well, I thought I could. There. Now there's the first pass. Not the best, not the worst. Remember, I'm trying to keep my weld more down on the thicker piece so it doesn't blow through to the top piece. But most people would leave it like that. Me, I'm going to put another bead on top to get the strength of the weld up into this corner where it's much more stronger than out here in this flat area. That keeps them from bending so much. Alrighty, I got it welded. I don't know if you can see that, but I made 3 passes on that, a root, and then I went up into get closer up to the top for that strength, and then I put another one back on the bottom. That oughtn't to come loose. Where I usually find problems is not the weld so much as the thin metal. So that's why I went up to get up in there, so it's a little stronger. Got it all taped up. I'll paint all this up, make it look as good as I can. Hate powder coat. Get that all painted up. That's how it all came out. This is all ready for another coat. Hang a box on it. Well, we're getting there. I went ahead and mounted the box to the arms here. I had just enough room. And guys, when you take off an old box, fill up the holes, you know? You don't need water getting in there. I mean, in this case, it doesn't have any end caps, but it just looks more professional when you do stuff like that. Now I have the top off of the box here. These 2 wires go to your 110 volt. I have to take this plate off, just unscrew it and it picks up, and make up the 110 volt connections behind that plate. You don't want them out here, inside there. Keep the 110 away from the low voltage. Now, this hole is where my wire from the arm will come into it. That hole right there where my big fat finger's sticking through is where the 110 volt. Now I need to, on the bottom here, I don't know if we can see those. They have some marks here. And that's where you can drill through other things. That's the drill I use to pop holes through here. Makes it work pretty good. I got 2 I need to put in. One for, actually 3. Got to run a ground wire from that rod up into here. Also have to take and run the power line to that one. That one goes to the gate hole. This one's coming out of the pad up there. So the key pad will go in there. And I need another smaller one for the photo eyes. Get them popped in there and I'll come back. Now, I haven't been filming a lot because I've just been busy trying to beat the rain. I've got the master sending unit over there for the photo eye, and I'm over here putting on the reflector. And I bolted in there, and it's got 2 bolts so you can tilt it if you need to. But there's one little thing I notice a lot. When they send this bracket, it's long. And you can put this like that. Heck, I've even seen some people put it like that, which is kind of dumb because then the rain and everything blows right in the side. So don't do it that way. Do it this way. The same orientation that one is over there. Now, you could put this out here, and it wouldn't hurt. But I'm going to put it a little bit closer, like right in here. And the reason I hate these is because they're usually too long. But if you cut them, you mess up the powder coating and they all rust. So I'd rather have it stick out a little bit than rust. Let me get it put together now. Well, I'm trying to beat the rain here, but just a few more wires to hook up. I want to show you something. This is a thing I see all the friggin' time. This is the heater and the photo eye. And the photo eyes come from Liftmaster like that, stripped and tinned. I see people sticking them in, they only go in that far, and this is all hanging out and shorting out against each other. So trim them off before you put them on, guys. This is the connections going to the arm. I've already hooked up the electrical back there. I got to finish grounding it and hook up a few wires to the keypad. This is bolted on this end. Guys, I see it all the time. See that little square nut? That's the head of a bolt that goes through. And it fits this way only. If you turn it the other way, it sits on top of this rail. I see it all the time like that. Got that ready, got the eyes. It's sprinkling on me, so let me hurry. Well, it took a little longer because of the rain, but I've got it all set up and a few little things to go over. Remember I said those wires come pre-tinned? Make sure they fit all the way in the socket so you don't have any wires sticking out that can easily be shorted. I see that all the time. This is the heater wires for the photo eyes on the Liftmaster. They're great, but they can only be used when you have 110. Don't hook them up to solar. They use too much power for solar applications. I've got everything in. This is the last thing I need to do. I got it grounded over there. This is a cell gate power supply for that box up there. Using this contactor right here for gate position. Got to power it up and program it. LA 5.0 is its version of the software running in Sport. It's sitting there looking for things right now. And now we've got to program it for the limits. But I need to be able to move this here so it'll go to there. And so you can do that by using the move gate buttons. Wrong way, go the other way. Get off there, fly. Trying to get a ride, aren't you? Carnival ride. Just gonna push the gate a little bit so that'll drop in. See, now we got that on. I'm just gonna put this big nut on there. And I'm just gonna let it sit there for a second. I'll tighten this up in a minute. You gotta hold on to the bottom flat of that when you tighten it up. But let's go ahead and see if it'll go to its limits. Let's come over here and go to open first. Hear how quiet that is? Let's see if that's the right. Move this box out of the way. I think that'll be fine. We're going to tell it that that's its open position. The way you do that is when those lights are flashing, it's in programming mode. I moved it to where I want it to be. I'm going to hit set open. It beeps, then that goes over there. It says set close. We're going to move the gate using these. That's that motor running. It's not a... And this is slow mode for it. I think it'll go by that over there. Those are elk way over there. They're pretty. Hit close, and I'm going to stop it. It'll go slow up to the gate, to the stop. Right there. I'm going to tell it it's closed. Now, I got battery charging. I got 110 volt coming in. Make sure you leave it on in there. I did that one time and left it on off and left, and 3 days later the batteries. There's two big batteries down there, 7 ampere batteries behind this motherboard. Everything's built in, sealed. Dust can't get in there, critters can't get in there. Makes your life nice. And these Liftmasters have lights to kind of tell you what's going on. It says that closed eye interrupt is not allowing the gate to open or close anymore now that it's programmed. So we go over here and we look down at this photo eye. And you can see it's got a red light on. Well, that means it's blocked or not hitting anything. It's not returning. I got to get something to loosen it a little bit. Let me go out there. Now I can turn this. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to get that red light to flicker to blue. There. See how it's blue now? Well, now it's blue. Now I'm going to turn it a little bit to where make sure it's in the center of that blue. There, solid blue. Tighten them all down. It's flickering because I've got my hand in the way, see? I'm gonna set this one little set point dog screw and that'll be all right. Now a lot of times those things vibrate, so make sure you mount it on something solid. Gardeners are terrible about it, so I mount them a little bit higher so they don't hit them. Now we got the Cellgate 450 up there. That's on. This is on. And if you can tell, my little yellow light went out. So now this one, if I hit the open button, will open. And it'll boogie too. So now I need to test it. But first I'm going to take and I'm going to program my all right, the gate's open and I don't have the timer set to close, and I've got to set the reversal force. I'll do that in a little bit. If you notice up here on this relay the gate's open, and when the gate's open I have it for a normally closed switch, and it lights up in that position so that it tells me, or it tells the cell gate box that the gate is open. So now I'm going to program this little remote. Hit the learn. It's already done. So now when I click the remote, everything goes to town. And it will. Shuts off. Waits for the next thing. Now you can leave it with the timer off and then just use the remote to open and hold it, but with the cell gate box that's all done internally, so just leave it timed and the cell gate will open it and then it'll close automatically. Got to put my warning signs on. You notice I went through the beam, went to red. It's good. Okay, I want to test these lights down here. I'm going to let the gate start shutting. And I'm going to block the light. Went to red. Gate stopped, started backing up. There's two methods of sensing in these things. These arms have sensors, and if it touches something it'll back up, but if that can get blocked. Well, I'm about to close it up. Everything's working fine. This is the screwdriver I like for these. Just sit there and go to town on them. You got old hands, it works great. That's what it looked like all covered up. These are the keys that go into this, and that way you can twist this and unlock the gate. It's got battery backup, power feeds it all the time. Cell gate 450. This is probably the best combination for a light gate that I could ever recommend. It's quiet. You don't have big batteries outgassing inside, messing up putting corrosion on your terminals and everything. Got the warning signs on it, Spanish and English. I don't know if this will work. You gotta program it.
Access granted.
Ah, it's working. Yay. Close the door. It also took my picture when it did that. I gotta clean up the face of it before I go. Police the area. I hate it when installers come around and leave wires and stuff on the ground. Don't do that. Okay, gate's closed. Reach up here. I'm not going to show you what I push. That ain't it.
Please wait while your call is connected.
I just push the call button. We'll see if it calls him. I see an 01. I don't think he's got his call group in. I don't know if you could see it, but down by that dumpster there's another one. So he's got 3 of these. This one needs to have be added to his call group so it rings his phone.
No one is available to take your call. Goodbye.
Sexy English voice is No extra charge. But I'm gonna open it with my code. And you gotta press the key button.
Access granted.
Took our picture. Well, took me taking a picture of the camera, so you're not really there, but I'm talking to you, so Well, I'm waiting on the owner to come. I'm going to give him his keys to haul my trash off. Got the old crappy operator loaded up in the trailer. Ready to go to the next job. Thanks for watching.